I'm very happy to be with you today, and I'm going to do some Q&As of the recent questions that have come in. Please remember, this is just my take, my perspective, which is always changing. Take what you appreciate, leave the rest. I am by no means inside us. Or are the rays like illusions but represent a real consciousness frequency that we can tap into? So another person asked me the same day about the Ascended Masters and the 7 Creator Rays. And I'm going to give you my opinion on this. Now, most of you know what I feel about Saint Germain and how I have radically shifted my views around the false white light, a lot of the New Age movement, and what a lot of the beings and Ascended Masters seem to present themselves and represent themselves as, though what isn't being transparently offered. So this is how I see it at this time. I perceive the Ascended Masters of the Great White Brotherhood and the more well-known 7 Creator Rays, the less well-known 5 Creator Rays, as beings that through the ages have shifted their presentation, because I perceive them as the, original Anunnaki, the more galactic beings that have been here for quite a while. And let me clarify, when I say Anunnaki, I'm not just talking about necessarily one very select set of beings that came in, as most people believe, because the word Anunnaki initially, when it came in, as far as I know, was a much more general term. In a way, kind of like outsiders, beings that came from the heavens. So what I perceive at this time as the Ascended Masters, I believe that they have ascended and mastered the densities confined within this suppression matrix. A part of that I feel validated by that perspective for myself is when we look at the Creator Rays. They are within the color spectrum that's visible to our human eye. These are frequency spectrums that we can access. They're within the accessibility of this matrix in a big way. And so what I perceive is that the Ascended Masters are beings that have been here for a very long time. They have had so much time and awareness, more than most of the humans that lived throughout the ages, of what's actually happening, that they have cultivated and mastered certain aspects of frequency. They have mastered a lot of Hermeticism. They've mastered a lot of alchemy. So a lot of their wisdom, I believe, does ring true. As I believe all of this stuff, there's truths and untruths. There's truths that you can gear towards agendas that you might want to align with, and then there's truths you can gear towards agendas that you don't want to align with. So, I am not in a place, as most of you know, that I'm accessing consciously any of the guides or the beings or the entities right now. Because for me, I want to be so clear that I access Spirit Source inside self first, and that no one can pull one over on me anymore. So this might not be best for everybody, though I have found, as I've explained before, that at least in my experience, it has been easy. It has been like a go-to to immediately go outside of myself in a way where I connect with another being that I perceive has more power, more enlightenment than I do. Now, they may have more know-how on certain subjects, but I feel that in that way of accessing their wisdom, I immediately place myself into a position where maybe I'm more disempowered than them. I want what they have, therefore I am not that yet or already. Though, in truth, if I am here to access Source Spirit as all that I am, I may not be conscious quite yet of all of that knowledge, though I have it within me. And I now require myself to be able to access that or work to that. So I'm not in a place yet where I feel so clear that no matter whom I connect with or communicate with or am aware is there, whatever their agenda, whatever their variance of dark to light or false light to authentic Source Spirit, I'm not ready to, start dialoguing again with them until I know that I'm clear all the way through. Now, I've also stopped using the violet flame. I used to use the violet flame a lot, and a lot of you know that, though I no longer align with the Saint Germain agenda. Since Saint Germain has such a mastery over the violet flame, and all of these other ascended masters have masteries over their rays, I know that there is a way to access that frequency away from, outside of their agendas, though, again, until I'm clear that I can access different frequential levels in clairvoyant tools or whatever we want to refer to them as, in a way that is neutral, pure, and is working for me solely in the way that I desire it to work for me, I abstain. I do work with gold, and I have been working with the rose gold. So I know that, a lot of the frequencies play different roles, though I want to ensure that I am not giving permission by way of accessing any kind of tool or frequency that may have dominance or ownership through another being, and that's one way I'm agreeing to agendas. So for me, going back to Parker's question, do I believe that the violet flame and the seven rays are a part of the false matrix? I do. They're within the false matrix. It's why we can see them. Are there actual seven main creator rays that make up everything? Well, everything makes up everything. So yes, these creator rays are a part of it, but what creators are they? What have they created? What are they accessing? Do I believe that they are the creators of the original source matrix? No, I do not. That's the reason I don't align with them in the way that I used to. And then he says, or are the rays like illusions but represent a real consciousness frequency that we can tap into? So they do represent a consciousness. Everything is consciousness, whether it's biological, natural consciousness, or AI consciousness. It's still a consciousness. There are infinite different realities. There are many different creators. But what have they created, right? So we have to be careful here. At this point in time, I perceive the creator rays and the ascended masters to be a part of the false white light. I perceive the Great White Brotherhood to be the false white light agenda and part of the Illuminati program. Basically, I'm not saying that they don't offer assistance by any way, though it's not what I want to align into, because ultimately I still see it as a controlling agenda, albeit it might have more access to consciousness and light. It's not the ultimate freedom of spirit source, and that's how I take it. Using the various rays and flames for healing in our work. Okay, so Corey was the one that must have addressed the same question as Parker. That's a great question, Corey. And as I said, I have now withdrawn from utilizing the violet flame because beyond the access that Saint Germain has into the violet flame and other beings that work with it, I think a lot of these frequencies have been commandeered and controlled by the controller beings in different agendas. And I think that over our lifetimes, our timelines, our souls, different experiences, our fragments, our aspects, it's very possible that the frequency rays and symbology and words, all sorts of things, have been used and programmed into us, installed into us, whether intentionally or subconsciously, that activate and trigger certain experiences, maybe around other fractures, soul fractures. They could be benevolent experiences too, though I think that we're not fully aware of all what's going on. And I also believe that when we activate the frequencies in alignment with the creator rays, not just necessarily the frequency as a neutral frequency that shows up on the color hue in spectrum, okay? Because in original form, in purity, all things can have a sense of neutrality in regard to frequency. We see these in our everyday reality all the time. Though it's good to be cognizant of what that's activating in us on many, many levels that maybe opposes what we believe we're using it for with work. So another reason that I think it's important to not use the color frequencies so much as a tool that's needed is because while I believe that psychic tools and of course everything is frequency, right? And symbology, sound, talismans, all can assist us. There is a fine line of becoming dependent on these things and or believing that they're what has the power as opposed to us. So as long as one keeps the power in self, you know, and then navigates it like not believing that the fork is what is actually giving us access to the food and the sustenance, you know, because we can easily eat with our hands. I think that is a better approach to it. Get simple and go with what resonates with you inside. You know, are you having to go outside yourself and think about it? Okay, I want to clear this energy, so now I need to activate this frequency ray because I believe in my mind it does that. Okay, well, that's a mental process that's outside of our being. And if we access heart, I trust that my heart is going to assist me in whatever frequency in all now moments that I require on infinite different levels in many different frequential ways. So, you know, if we're using this in a structured way, that might be keeping us from being in the holistic essence of our heart truth and our own power. And again, I believe that a lot of the frequencies and energetics, like a lot of things, have been commandeered and hacked and inverted in this matrix. So I now take a lot of care around this stuff, and I have gotten in trouble with a lot of this stuff. So I've had to double back and be like, well, okay, that sounded nice at the time, but now I register that doesn't align or serve me, okay? So let's see. Okay, Corey, you also said, I know for me the betrayal and realizations of channeling such beings as Saint Germain and working with the angels has left me in a dark night and feel we need some new age anonymous groups to cope with such realizations, LOL. But I appreciate your work in uncovering more of this for us. Okay, so betrayal's a good one, right? Let's talk about that, because I expressed to you guys I also felt really, really betrayed. So I now align also with what Max Spears says about betrayal. Max Spears says, who was, you know, not coined himself, but a mind-controlled super soldier, Uberman, that was unfortunately killed by the controllers, but he gave a lot of information from his perspective to assist humanity in awareness. He said that betrayal is one of the most efficient ways to fracture the soul. And my experience of this, that is pretty accurate, okay? 2019, now mind you, it was in my Chinese astrology that betrayal was a possible susceptibility for a lot of the pigs or the boars, which is my Chinese sign. I went through so much betrayal, just back to back to back to back to back. And it was just like, boo, 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 boo. And man, it sucks, okay? So I totally empathize with you, Corey. Betrayal is horrible. And I think a way for us to process this, kind of what I did with this, is while we have to retreat at times and lick our wounds and nurture and be really sensitive with ourselves, especially when we catapult back into another round or layer of our dark night of the soul, is that ultimately we are the game players, right? We created our game, we've inserted ourselves into the game. So if betrayal's coming into our space, we can step back and look at why we've inserted more betrayal in. Because another thing about it, not that it's the way it needs to be by any means, but again, this is an inverse matrix, so we have to deal with a bunch of shit, right? So not that it has to be this way, but it is. Betrayal teaches us a whole lot about what's important to us, how to be whole in our being, and how to become aware of the very vulnerable soul fragments and parts of us that need healing. And I have now realized that a lot of the betrayal I went through in the past year, I've had so much secrets exposed in awareness in my life, especially in 2019, that I realized that those pieces of betrayal that came from many different parts of my life, including the archangels and Saint Germain, in a way were projections of another mass betrayal that I have been more privy to in the last few months around mind control and being in the programs and being targeted. And so it's like I can see now in one way how those betrayals were projections outside of myself of the soul fragmenting that has been living in me that I haven't been aware of, and it's coming out to show itself just like a projector. So betrayal is a frequency experience that is so thorough in the way it can shatter us. And it is such an important experience for us to be able to overcome and pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. Betrayal is one experience that really shows us how strong our will is and what separates us from the masses in the way of having a strong enough will to heal and to survive and to bounce back and to forgive. So I know that that is something that is tremendously upsetting, to say the least. Though again, this entire inverse matrix is a betrayal of the outverse. This whole thing is a massive betrayal to the truth of our prime source existence. So these experiences, why they feel so thorough, are micro expressions of the totality betrayal of what we're all experiencing at this time. And it is one of the biggest pieces to heal and overcome and understand that, you know, it's thrown us out of our center, and there is an opportunity to get to such a space of self-knowing and self-love that while we can process our emotions and how that feels, that we're so thorough and clear on our power and our light and source experience that betrayal is inevitable. in this matrix. And so we're just being able to see some of what's already been there. I do like your anonymous groups around the New Age. I'm just going to kind of abandon the New Age movement and move back into truth, or as I already have. So I hope that answered some of this for you, Corey. Though, betrayal is this inevitable piece that we're all going through, and we're all going to continue to go through as we reveal more and more of what's actually happening. And that's why it's so important for us to access source inside ourselves, because it's guaranteed more of that's coming. And it doesn't have to be something that just demolishes us, because we can know it's the inverse matrix. Of course that's a part of it, right? And we access our spirit frequency, where we know the true reality, our true born right? And we're billowing this into the consciousness, into the frequencies in copious amounts in all now moments. That's why we're here. We're not here to be victims. We're here to step up and say, all right, I bit off a lot in this one. This is heavy, this is intense, and more is coming at me. And I'm here because I am extremely powerful, right? So, it's kind of par for the course in a way.
Hey, this is Russ Dizdar, shadowthedarkness.net on the web, preemptionbroadcast.com on the web. Listen, we're talking about ascended masters. Ascended masters, spiritual beings. Some have called them the advanced beings or the Great White Brotherhood. These are the ones on the other side of the veil. They've been speaking, they've been influencing, they've been guiding the hearts and lives of those, who've been unaided by the Spirit of God, who have been open to ascended masters, wolves in angelic clothing. Listen, this is Russ Dizdar. We've done a live kind of talk show on this subject of ascended masters a week ago. You can go to the shadowthedarkness.net front web page, and you can find out just about all you need to know on these kind of subjects, on the subjects of ascended masters. Now, the reason I want to share this is that people are influenced. I've read a dozen books in the last year of people who have been guided by ascended masters. And I do know by another providential work that some of you that will listen to this have read, have been influenced by, maybe even believe in the ascended masters. Listen, who are these ascended masters that millions are influenced by? Thousands seek their attention and ancient wisdom. Over 30 years ago, when I was in Golden Buddha meditation, and I was being trained at a temple by a master, a physical human master, in the art of this meditation and how to leave my body and how to open myself, to be passive, to empty myself and open myself to these beings, this presence. Now, I was told by this physical master that these ascended masters or ancient masters would want to come to me and share with me wisdom and knowledge and begin to speak and influence me and maybe even use my body. Listen, there are so many that have allowed this to happen. They have opened their bodies to channeling. Channeling what? What is the discernment? What is the perception? What do you know about these ascended masters? Well, Helena Blavatsky can talk about the Great White Brotherhood. Aleister Crowley and others can talk about these ascended masters, these advanced beings. Who they are and what they really are shrouded, shrouded in incredible secrecy. You've got to understand the agenda. You've got to understand the supernatural pull or the influence or the knock at the door at the hearts of millions. Lately, I've been reading, Craig Hines, his book, Gateway to the Gods. Gateway to the Gods. As I began to read his book, I noticed immediately that he shares the story of an incredible dark experience, of a shadowy presence, of an entity that eventually begins to influence him with thoughts and guide him. Eventually, he's referring to it as maybe a guiding spirit. There's an intelligent being behind the dark experience that Craig Hines had before he wrote his book, Gateway to the Gods. Before he was led out onto that occultic field where they dance on razor blades. Like Nietzsche and Crowley, many others will come to their end sick, lost, crazed, and without God. Ascended masters, is that what we're talking about when we listen to New Age teacher after New Age teacher after New Age teacher, and they tell us about how these advanced beings, how these spirit guides, how these ancient masters are guiding the world? Listen, the collective voice is that they are guiding the world to a spiritual evolution. I don't know how many times we're going to hear that spiritual evolution, or the evolution of human consciousness, or the transformation of the human race. There is this spiritual carrot out there on a stick that the ascended masters have placed and have been guiding those even the ascended masters they know that they are dupes. They know that they are being led blindly. And then they become the blind leading the blind. Alice Bailey, Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, John Dee, Marilyn Ferguson, Robert Mueller, David Spangler, and thousands of others that are unknown. Eckhart Tolle and Oprah are just the newest. But listen, I'm going to tell you again, there is somebody seeking your soul. There is somebody seeking your life. And listen, you've got to understand, and I put this on the article, listen, if you've gone to the page, Preemption Broadcast Podomatic, and you've gotten a hold of this or downloaded this, on that page is a link to a news article. And the article is called, on that Shadow the Darkness news update page, Ascended Masters or Wolves in Angelic Clothing. Don't you realize that they can transform themselves? They are supernatural in comparison to us, supranatural. They can do things that we cannot fathom. We don't understand the physics of that side. We don't understand the depth of that nature. Listen, quoting, in a fallen world, there are clearly two sides seeking all of us. There are supernatural powers at work. Both sides want us, but for massively different reasons. Oh, they want you. They'll guide you. They'll direct you. Even as Craig Hines, author of the book, Gateway to the Gods, demonstrates, testifies, confesses in the first number of pages. Even in the first 35 pages, you're going to read about his experience with something dark, shadowy. He doesn't even want to talk about it, yet he eventually allows this presence to guide him, lead him, direct him. And this intelligent being behind the scene even guides him to specific bookstores. This spirit guide guides him to read certain books and begins to plunge Craig Hines into the streams, the occult streams, into the entire barrage of New Age teaching. which come from the spirits, which come from the ascended masters. These finite beings connected to the fallen cherubs seek, listen, I'm going to talk about it in this broadcast today. They seek a number of things. 3 in particular. Listen, those who've received the presence, message, and false light of these dark beings, they are dancing on the razor's edge of their own destruction. The Spirit of the living God, the infinite Spirit of God, if you want someone to guide you, let the Creator guide you. Instead, they collect suffering servants. Well, like Alice Bailey, like Helena Blavatsky, whose books have influenced millions to this very day. These ascended masters are what God, the infinite Holy Spirit, reveals as the cosmocrators. Cosmocrators. Let me go over some of the things they seek. Number 1, they seek spiritual confusion. Spiritual confusion. In a world where there are 2 sides pulling at the hearts of lost man. Yes, it is God seeking you. Yes, it is God that wants you. Yes, it is God that loves you. And God pursuing you. You may not have listened. You may not have looked. You may not have heard or understood His voice. It all depends. It all really depends on what you are open to. You may have felt the breath of the dark side guiding you through synchronistic activities, through individuals who've invited you, through voices, whispers, dreams. Some of you have allowed these beings to even come to you, guide you, and begin to write through you, speak through you. Craig Hines allowed this being or beings to begin to guide and lead and direct his life. And they led him not to the face and the heart and the life and the love and the embrace of God. They led him to ancient dark occult extremes that brings spiritual confusion. If they come to you already cloaked, wolves in angelic clothing. Wolves in angelic clothing. Do you think they're going to tell you the truth just because they're supernatural and that they're beyond our physics? Just because they seem to have ancient information? Is the military, the NSA, NASA, are individuals in the New Age movement, remote viewers, many others. Are you going to embrace these old, ancient, fallen beings? Cosmocrators. Have you looked up the word? Ephesians chapter 6. It's a reference to those in the air, those influencing the world, those that bring about rule in the world. They literally want to guide the writers, leaders, and others in the world. They want to bring information. They've got a plan. Hey man, they've got a plan. Spiritual confusion is important to them. That's what occurred in Genesis 3:6. Haven't you read it? Haven't you read when the fallen cherub brought the confusion and promised something he could never produce? The evolution of humanity to deification. These cosmocrators are part of the secret power of lawlessness. If you want to talk about the Illuminati, if you want to talk about the ancient brotherhood, the black flame, if you want to talk about those of the old order that have delved into the same occult streams, that Alice Bailey, that Helena Blavatsky, and that currently people like Craig Hines have been guided and led into, somehow by the providence of God, by the grace of God, somehow, because there are 2 sides after the heart and the mind of humanity, this message may get to Craig Hines and those who have read, and those Crowleyites black flamers, and others. See, the real Luciferians, they understand the nature, they understand the power of deception. They think they've been given the elitist knowledge and that they've got, the real inside story, and they're part of and believe in the power of this deception, of this ancient deception, bringing spiritual confusion in the frog and the kettle approach, slow, little by little, cooking humanity. It's as though billions don't even know that they have been roasted over the flames, over the flame of what the ancients called the black flame, the spirit of Antichristu. Spiritual confusion, has the spirits, the supernatural experiences, the dreams, the so-called angels that you claim you have they guided you to the face of God, the heart of God, the gift of immortality, the realization that right now, dwelling within you by the Spirit of the infinite God, you have the gift of eternal life?